and welcome to the Media Corp's TV studio. Today we are online and we have got Diane Hawkins joining us, the Lord Lieutenant for Greater Manchester, and we have got our mini reporters ready and waiting with lots of questions about her role and how she got into it, and lots of other fun questions, as you are probably fully aware that our mini reporters love to ask now too. So first up, we have Amal, but before we start in our actually no, Amal, you go straight for it, because I think some of the stuff that Diane might say as part of her introduction is probably part of your questions too. So
okay,
if you go straight in there.
Hi.
hello.
How did you become Lord Lieutenant?
Well, I haven't been Lord Lieutenant very long, only since July this year. And before that, I was what's called a Deputy Lieutenant. And there are lots of those in Greater Manchester, nearly 70 altogether. And I've been one of those for a long time. But Sir Warren, who was the Lord Lieutenant before me, decided to retire in the summer. And so everybody had to look for somebody to replace him. And somebody comes from the Cabinet Office at number 10 Downing Street and has a talk to lots of people within the county and says, who do you think might be able to do this role? And eventually he came and had a chat with me and said, do you think you would like to do it? And I thought very long and very hard about it, because it's a huge role as well as being a great honour and a big responsibility. But in the end, I was offered the role and I accepted it.
Congratulations. I think before you go into your next question, Amal, probably good for Diane to talk a bit about what that role entails.
Yeah.
What do you do on a day-to-day basis, Diane?
On a day-to-day basis, well, every day is different. The Lord Lieutenant, there's one in every county of the whole of the country. And basically, I'm the King's representative in the county. So that means I'm sort of his eyes and ears to uphold the dignity of the crown, if that doesn't sound too complicated, but basically to watch out for things that are going on. And if they want to know what is happening in Greater Manchester, either I can tell them or somebody else can that will tell me. I'm a volunteer too, just like everybody else, but I really enjoy what I'm doing and I know I'm making a difference. So I hope that helps a bit.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Amal, I'll go back to you for your next question, because I think that leads you in quite nicely, doesn't it?
If I wanted to have the job of Lord Lieutenant, what would I have to do?
What would you have to do? Well, that's a really good question. You would have to carry on doing what I think you're probably doing now, finding things that you enjoy and things that you're really passionate about and that are making a difference both to yourself and to other people, and carry on doing more of that. And it might be that you get a job that involves doing some of that, or it might be that you do a job doing something completely different, but in your spare time, you like helping other people and making a difference to their lives. And gradually, the more of that you do, not only is it more rewarding, because it really is rewarding when you know you've made a difference to other people, but also you will get noticed and you will be asked to do more things to help more people. And eventually, one day, I don't think it will be me, because I've got probably 10 years in this job and you might not be quite old enough then to be asked to become a Deputy Lieutenant. But that would be the next stage, really, probably when you're a bit older than that. But when the Lord Lieutenant is appointing deputies, they look for people who've done really good work in their community, and they're appointed because of that, but in the hope and the clear expectation that they carry on doing even more of the same and carry on.
Oh, I can definitely see you doing that, Amal. Yeah, that's
there you go. In a few years, well, more than a few, but in a number of years, but you know what the pathway is now.
Absolutely. Okay, I think she's got one of her fun style questions for you now.
Okay.
Always the trickiest ones.
I bet. I was dreading this.
Would you rather write everything you say out by hand or speak in rhymes?
Oh, I'd rather say everything, write it all out. I think if I had to speak in rhymes, I'd really have to think so hard about it. I probably would end up not saying very much at all. So I do quite a lot of public speaking, and I wouldn't say I write all my speeches out. or every single word, but I do like making notes, and then I can carry on talking and say what I want to say.
Really good answer. You made it relevant to your role too. That was a great answer. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Right, we're going to hand over to Freya now for your questions, please, Freya.
What was it like working with the Queen, and did you meet her?
Well, I didn't work directly with the Queen because the last time I met her was last year. I don't know if you remember, she came to Manchester in the summer, and it was after Prince Philip had died, and it was one of the first trips she made. And she came to Victoria Station, where I met her at the station and welcomed her to Greater Manchester. And then she went to Coronation Street, to the studios, and she was so excited about going to see Coronation Street. She'd been before, but she wanted to go again. And then after that, she went to the cathedral, where she met people from all over the Northwest, and they'd all done special things. Some of them had got Queen's Award for Voluntary Service, and some had got personal honours like MBEs, and they all talked to the Queen about what she had done. And she was so interested in everybody. And she had that lovely, radiant smile, because she was really pleased to be here back in Manchester again. So that was the last time I met her. And she did actually appoint me as Lord Lieutenant back in July, but I haven't seen her since then. And sadly, she died. So that's why I am now the King's representative. And I went to the Queen's funeral, which was a very moving experience. I'm sure you saw it on the television, and lots of media coverage of that. And I have met the King since then, who obviously is my boss now, if you like.
Brilliant, thank you. How lovely to hear that she was back in Greater Manchester and that she loved Coronation Street. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How sorry. How many corgis did she have, and did you get to meet them?
I didn't meet any of the corgis. She had lots, starting with a corgi called Susan when she was quite young. And she always had corgis after that, or she had mixture, they're called dorgies. I think they were a mixture of a dachshund and a corgi. So she had various dogs, but she was never without her dogs. And as she got much older in the last few years, she thought that perhaps she shouldn't have any more dogs in case they outlived her. But then one of her sons decided to give her some more dogs because she was sad because she'd lost her husband, and she was given more dogs, which gave her lots of pleasure. And now her family are looking after them since she's died. So they meant a great deal to her. And there's a lovely story, which you might have heard, about a man who was a doctor, and he used to work in places in the world where it was very dangerous, and he saw lots of horrible things where there'd been bombings and really ill people that he looked after. And he was invited to lunch at Buckingham Palace, and the Queen started talking to him about where he'd been and what he'd done. And he got so upset that he couldn't speak. And she realized that, and she asked somebody to bring her some dog biscuits, and the two of them then just fed the dogs under the table. And he managed to compose himself, and they talked about the dogs. And he said she was so kind and thoughtful because she recognized how upset he was because of what he'd done. And she just made him feel comfortable again and able to talk and carry on with the lunch. And I think that is such a lovely story of how kind and thoughtful a person she was.
What was she like?
Very kind and thoughtful, as I've said. I think she was a very wise woman. She lived a long time, and you may have heard about, because it was well before you were all born, but when she was 21, which is a long time ago now, over 70 years ago, she knew that one day she would be queen, and she dedicated her life to the country and all the people who lived there. And I think you've probably read enough about her and seen enough about her to know that that's exactly what she did. She dedicated her life, so she was very dedicated. She loved her family, she loved the country, she loved everybody in it. She was very wise. She saw a lot of prime ministers come and go, and she always gave them advice very quietly. And they didn't have to take it, but they were probably not very wise themselves if they didn't. And she really cared about people. And I think that was so important. And her Christian faith was very important to her as well. And she got a lot of comfort from that.
Sounds, and again, Freya, it sounds a lot of the traits that you have. I know you've got dogs and the big animal lover as well, aren't you? So you probably would have got on very well with the Queen.
I bet you would.
And my last one, if you were sweet, what sweet would you be and why?
Oh, if I was the sweet, what would I be? Well, I tell you what I always used to like, but I probably don't eat them now because I don't think they do my teeth any good. In Quality Street, they were the big gold round toffees in like a gold wrapping, and I used to love those, but I don't really dare to eat them now in case they pull my fillings out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Diane. We'll hand you over to Joshua.
Hello, Joshua.
Hi. My first question is, who's your favourite member of the royal family and why?
My favourite member? I think the Princess of Wales, or the new Princess of Wales. I met her only a few weeks ago when she came to Wigan, so not that far away, and she came to watch the rugby league match. And she was delighted to come. It was a bit of a horrible day and she had a dreadful journey to arrive, but she came and she was so interested in everything. All the people she met, and some of them were really important people like Claire Balding, who you've perhaps heard of. She's on radio and television, and she's the president of Rugby League. But she also met members of some charities that were involved in supporting rugby league players and other groups of people within Wigan. And she was equally as interested in talking to them. And actually, I was warned that it would be hard to move her on and we were a bit short of time, but she was so interested in talking to all these people. She watched the match, and you might have seen on the television, if you watched any of it, she went out onto the pitch and met all the mascots and she spoke to every single one of them. And then at half-time of the men's match, she met the women who'd played in the match earlier on in the day. And again, she was so interested in what they had to say and really listened. She invited the captain and one of the other players to sit next to her for the second half of the match. So there were two very important men, don't know who they were, and she basically moved them over and said, no, these two girls are sitting next to me. And before she came back to sit in her seat, the captain said to me, oh, I'm really nervous. What am I going to talk to her about? I said, she's really nice and you won't have any difficulty. And you know, the three of them never stopped talking in the second half, all about how these girls had started to play rugby, how much they enjoyed it, how important it was to play for their team and for their country. And they were so interested. And I think that's the key to the Princess of Wales. She loves people. She's very natural. If she was here now, she'd be talking to you just like I am. And you just think it was your mum or your big sister. She's really, really lovely and so interesting.
Oh, well, we'd absolutely love that, wouldn't we?
I bet you would, yes.
Yeah.
If she comes again, I'll mention it.
Thank you, Joshua. Next question.
Who have you worked with the most?
What, in the royal family?
Yeah.
Or, yeah. Well, none of them most, because I've not been in my role very long. So I met the Queen last year and I've met her before. And this year I was lucky enough to meet the King and the Queen last month in London, very briefly, and the Princess of Wales. And you might have seen again on television or whatever, after the Queen died, Prince Edward and Sophie came to Manchester. And that was lovely because they were really sad because they'd lost their mum. But nevertheless, they came to Manchester to share in the fact that we were all sad and missing the Queen as well. And they were really lovely and they appreciated the support that we got. So I don't think I've got a favourite out of the ones I've met. I think they have all been really lovely people and very genuine and very pleased to come to Manchester, which is great for all of us, isn't it?
Brilliant. Yes.
My third question is, what can be challenging about your job? Say if you found something hard and you just couldn't carry on.
Oh, I hope I never get to that point of feeling it's too hard to carry on. And I'm so new in it. I'm sure I'm far away from that sort of stage. But it can be challenging. You are asked to do lots of different things, and sometimes they're all at the same time. And that's why I have lots of deputies, so that if I'm asked to do something and then another invitation comes in, I don't think it's good manners to say, oh, well, that sounds better than the first one, so I'll forget the first one, I'll do the next one. I think if you've accepted an invitation, it's important to carry on with it. But if something else comes in and I think, well, yes, if I'd been free, I would have gone to that, and I'm not free, so I'll ask somebody else to go instead of me and represent me. So that can be challenging, trying to fit my diary, make it stretch far enough to do everything I want to do. And I often say, I wish I was like Hermione in Harry Potter, who had, I've forgotten what it was called, I bet you know, where she could actually have 2 days at the same time. So she could do 2 lessons at the same time, and she could do lots of things and fit twice as much into one day. And I need one of those, really.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because something might be coming up as one of our questions.
Oh,
We might now know your answer too.
right.
What's your next question, Joshua?
Yeah, and my final question is, what animal would you be and why?
What animal would I be? Oh, now that's an interesting one. Do you know, I don't really know. I think I might be a cat, because cats can go out wherever they want, and nobody, unless they really don't like cats, gets rid of them. And you can go and investigate everybody's gardens. Sometimes you can go into people's houses and have a good nosy round and have a look, and probably get fed as well. And you can just do what you like, really. No responsibilities. And there's always usually somewhere warm and dry to go to at night.
Sounds wonderful, doesn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, it really does. I'd like to be pampered as well.
Would you? Yes. I think
Yeah.
that's a nice thing to be, isn't it?
Well, we'd all like a bit of that, Joshua, definitely.
Yes.
Thank you, Joshua. And we'll hand you over to our final correspondent, Nikita.
Hello.
Hello. So my first question is, who was your role model and why?
Who was my role model? I'm not sure I've got any one role model, but I think in my life there's been a lot of inspirational women. And I went to a school which only had girls, and we were always told you can do anything you want if you set your mind to it. And I think that was really important. And I've always thought, right, nothing's going to stop me. It doesn't matter that I'm a woman. It makes no difference at all. And I'm a lot older than you. And when I was your age, we certainly didn't have a woman prime minister. We didn't have many women in public offices. We didn't have many women running companies or anything like that. There were women doctors, there were women lawyers, like I was when I was at work, but there weren't very many of them. And when I actually started work as a solicitor, everybody thought I was somebody's secretary. They didn't realise that I could be a solicitor. So things have changed enormously. But I think it was really down to the fact that my school made me really believe that as a woman, I could do anything I wanted. And now in Greater Manchester, I'm the first woman to have this job. We have a Lord Mayor of Manchester who is a woman. We have a High Sheriff of Greater Manchester who is a woman. So it's girl power all the way.
I love girl power. Joshua included, of course, because we should all be along that journey, shouldn't we?
Oh, absolutely.
So my second question is, if you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, well, we're back to Hermione, aren't we? It would, that superpower of living each day twice. It would be fantastic. I would have so much more time to do everything really well and properly without getting absolutely so tired that when I go to bed, I'm asleep before I've even touched the pillow.
What would yours be, Nikita?
A bit like our last meeting, probably to go around the world so I could see loads of stuff, like teleport. Woo, I'm here.
Yes, now that would be good.
That would work really well for you as well, Diane, wouldn't it? If you've got lots
Probably,
of
yeah. Save all that travelling time.
No more airports for me then.
No.
And My last question is, what is your favorite conversation with the Queen?
I think it was the last time I saw her in Manchester, and I welcomed her to Greater Manchester, and I said how pleased we all were to see her back in Manchester. And you know what she said? I'm always pleased to be in Manchester. It's a lovely place to visit.
Oh, that's lovely.
Which is really nice to know.
It is fantastic to know. Oh, thank you so much, Diane.
Not at all.
I think one other thing that we always like to ask is, like, if you have a favorite motivational quote or a piece of advice for our mini reporters for the future.
I think it's follow your dream. You're obviously making a great start here, and the fact that you're all quite prepared to speak in public is so important. That's one of the skills that was never taught at all when I was younger, and I think now a lot more schools realise how important it is. And yet so many people are frightened of speaking in public. They're more scared of doing that than all sorts of things. They're more frightened of doing that than dying. And actually, if you can speak in public, you can do anything. So you've made a cracking start, and I wish you all the very best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much. And that really sits with what we say in Media Clubs, doesn't it? That we're here to help you broadcast your confidence and make sure that your views and opinions count from such a young age, because it's important to say your views too, isn't it? So thank you so much for being a great role model for them, Diane, and
not at all.
their questions today.